The Weekend Warriors Draft Special is brought to you by Bud Light. No easier way to enjoy your Sunday. Bud Light is the official beer of the NFL and a proud partner of the Carolina Panthers. Episode 5, we focus on the defensive backfield. Anish Shroff, ESPN's Tom Luginbill with you. We'll hear from former Panther defensive back and longtime NFL defensive back Eugene Robinson a little later on. That is a position and a position group for Carolina which will likely be rebuilt here. When you look at what they have, J.C. Horn signed a huge extension on the first day of free agency. You got Shaw Smith-Wade out of Wazoo, fifth-round pick last year, had his moments as a rookie. Damani Richardson, undrafted rookie out of Texas A&M, is a guy who also showed some promise. But the safety room in particular, Xavier Woods, Jordan Fuller, those guys are gone. You're going to have to rebuild that room, and you're going to have to do it, both through free agency and the draft. And there's a lot of intriguing draft prospects to get to. But first, Lugs, the safety position. When you think of guys like Jack Tatum and Ronnie Lott, you grew up on the West Coast, can't really play safety that way anymore.
No, you cannot. I mean, it's unbelievable. Number one, I think it's become more and more difficult, particularly in the defensive secondary, with as little contact as you have now, or you're allowed to have, you're permitted to have, and then all of a sudden you play in the game and it's 115 miles an hour, and you're expected to tackle really well. And the strike zone now is so small in terms of what you can do. It's how precise you have to be a good tackler. And at the safety position, like, I don't know how guys do it. I really don't.
Well, what's happened is the position has been devalued across the NFL. So before we get into prospects, what do you look for in a safety these days? Because it's different from 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're looking at it from a physical perspective, you'd love to have that rugged size, that mentality, that hitter, that striker's mentality. But I think now it's alignment, instincts, keeping the ball in front of you, seeing what's happening, your ability to break off the hash and plant and come forward on the ball. All of those things are, important, but you can't play with the same physical nature that we become accustomed to seeing from safeties. And that's a shame.
Yeah, the Steve Atwaters of the world, the John Lynch's.
Oh, my goodness.
Dinosaurs now.
What would happen to John Lynch's bank account if he played right now?
What bank account?
Yeah, I mean, it would all be gone in fines. I mean, and the thing is, when you take that away from somebody and it's one of their greatest attributes, how are they supposed to perform at the top level?
Yeah.
Like, that's frustrating.
It seems now with a safety, you're sort of looking for a Swiss Army knife.
Mm-hmm.
So a guy who can play the pass, who can play in the box, can maybe even double as a slot corner if need be. One of the names that has been bandied about as a potential first-round pick, Malachi Starks out of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we saw out of Starks was versatility in college, where he was a guy that they were able to move all over the field, and we saw him a lot in the slot this past year.
Yeah, because he's got some natural cover skills. And I think that, a cover safety, you hear that phrase, a cover safety. Well, I mean, think about who you're matching up against. You might have to match up against a slot. It may not just be a tight end or a running back out of the backfield. It might be a legitimate receiving threat, and you're going to have to hold up. The thing that's interesting, you mentioned Malachi Starks and his versatility and the ability to line in a variety of areas. But the darling, at least from a measurable standpoint, coming out of the combine was clearly Nick Emanuwari.
Yeah, South Carolina.
Yeah, out of South Carolina. Now, the thing that makes him intriguing to me is he started out as a corner, and he's super tall and super long. Then he moves into safety. Well, to your point, his size is such an attribute that he can now come forward, play near the box, play over the middle as a middle corner, all of those sorts of things. And then he tested, like, off the charts, especially when you consider his height-weight combination. All of the testing times for him were just ridiculous. Now,
6'4", 230.
Yeah, 230. And his vertical leap, his 40, his three-cone L drill was like, what is going on here? It was a little bit reminiscent of a defensive version of what we saw DK Metcalf do at the Combine. What's interesting, though, and I bring this up because you can't get too caught up in a lot of those things, is the year that DK Metcalf came out, there were 10 offensive linemen that did a faster short shuttle than he did. And what have we now seen in the NFL from DK Metcalf? He is a straight line player, right? And so that manifested itself when it comes to lateral agility and cutting and making people miss. I think Emmanuel Warrior's in a much better position from a defensive perspective because your eyes are forward, you're coming forward, and all of those sorts of things. So interesting, very eclectic group. Sizes, shapes, versatility, guys that have played corner, moved into safety originally. You know, that's a positive.
Somebody who did that, Jahdae Barron.
Yeah.
At Texas. And Jahdae Barron, Thorpe Award winner, he played that star position for Steve Sarkisian, hybrid safety linebacker, could play outside, could play nickel. They moved him all around, and he was incredibly versatile. You had to account for him as an offense. You talk to the teams that are playing him. We got to know where Jahdae Barron is lined up. In the NFL, can that work, or does he have a premier position?
I think it can work. I think the fact that he's comfortable playing in multiple roles and has had a distinctly high level of production in both of those roles tells you that you'd feel very comfortable with wherever he lines up. Does he have maybe the ideal height that you'd like for him to have on the outside? Probably not. But I think the thing that stands out about him, and when you talk to the coaching staff at Texas, is he is the ultimate student of the game. Knows the game inside and out, not only knows his job, he knows everybody else's job, gets people aligned, a true quarterback of the defense. I think that helps from a safety perspective. Obviously, he was running that back end, but then he proves that he can move out to the corner position and function and play at a high level. There's not a lot of guys that do that. You might have corners on the outside and move inside, not the other way around.
And again, that offers a defense, that positional flexibility, which is in high demand these days. Yeah, another guy, 6 interceptions a year ago for the national runner-up. That was Xavier Watts, 7 interceptions the previous year. The Panthers have kind of wanted for a few years, that takeaway artist, that ball hawk on the back end of their defense. Watts is a guy who, when you're looking second round, maybe early third, there's a good chance he's there at 57.
Yeah, there is a good chance. And I think the thing was, he was a former linebacker candidate before settling in at safety. And I think the thing about him, though, is that he's at his best when he's allowed to sit back, key the quarterback, watch the eyes, see things unfold, and then go make a play. I don't know if he's the type of player where you say, okay, you have to, align in this, and then that's your launch point. That's your landmark. I think he's better when you turn him loose.
A rover, essentially.
A roaming type of guy. So anything that allows for him to key where the quarterback seems to be going with the ball, because he's got such twitchy, fast twitch movements that once he makes that decision, he gets there in a hurry.
Let's hit some cornerbacks now. A guy who potentially could be there at number 8, Will Johnson out of Michigan. And again, when you're building a team, we see this a lot with the best teams. They amplify strengths, and if you're the Panthers, yes, we know what the need is on the front 7. But pairing Will Johnson and J.C. Horn, boy, those are 2 really good one-on-one corners.
Oh, and big. I mean, Will Johnson looks like how you'd want a safety to look, and he's playing on the perimeter. So what does that mean? Well, height and length are the 2 things that every coach is coveting at corner, because it cuts down real estate, makes the holes to throw the ball into that much smaller, and it can completely remove a red zone threat from an opposing offense, because you don't have that height disadvantage that favors the offense when you got a guy like Will Johnson. I think he can play on the field side. His size would lend you to think that maybe he's going to be more of a boundary guy at the next level. But you're right. I mean, he's an absolute difference maker, I believe. And again, guys with that size playing corner are not standing on every street corner.
And again, that is one of those positions where it just seems if you want that alpha, that true number one, generally speaking, hard to find those guys at corner later in the draft.
Absolutely, because if they were that guy, they wouldn't be later in the draft, you know? And listen, guys will emerge at different stages and in different rounds, but when you're checking boxes as a tackler, as a cover player, not just the ideal size, you're exceeding the measurable standard that coaches want on the outside, and you can run. And by the way, he's just 21 years old. You got a long future ahead of him.
One other intriguing name, if you're thinking, okay, where can you maybe find a guy after round one who could be a number one type corner? ECU in Greenville, Savone Revel.
Okay.
Had the ACL injury, missed most of the season. He was a projected bona fide first-round pick before the injury. Spoken very highly of. That might be an opportunity. Again, the hedge here is injury risk. And, the Panthers went that route with Jonathan Brooks in the second round last year. Maybe they're hesitant to do it again.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to buy upside at a position where you normally have to go get a guy early, that could be an option.
It could be an option. You have to be convinced that you're back at full health and do your due diligence on that on the medical side of it. But you're right. I mean, you're sitting there talking about sometimes those things happen, and now all of a sudden you get a huge discount on a first round talent. All right, now is there a risk? Of course, there's a risk.
Injury.
Yeah, the injury. But I will say this too, though. There's something to be said for a first-time injury versus a laundry list. Like if a guy has been hurt a lot, he's going to be hurt a lot. That's just, you sit there and you look at Tua Tagovailoa. Well, he was just like that in college. And to me, if that's what you're going to invest in, then you got to understand what you're going to get in return. If it's a one-off or the guy's had an injury and then he's been able to go 2 seasons, 3 seasons, doesn't have anything wrong, I don't think you worry about that stuff. I think the questions you ask on a guy like Revel is what was his injury history after that ACL or before the ACL?
Before the ACL.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guy that you saw covering the ACC a whole lot, Dorian Strong.
Virginia Tech?
At Virginia Tech.
Yeah. First of all, they had a bunch of back-end players that were really good.
They kind of always have.
They always have. And a lot of that, too, keep in mind, that was a team up front that had Antoine Powell-Ryland and Aeneas Peebles. So they were causing problems, which takes the pressure off the back end.
Right. And so, again, was it that those guys were really good on the back end, or were they benefited by the offense having less time?
Right. I mean, and probably a combination of both, right? I mean, if we're going to be fair, because you don't want to take away from Dorian Strong's ability, but he is talented. He's very talented. I think when this position, I think there's 4 premium positions: quarterback, offensive tackle, defensive line, and corner. Those are the 4. They're the 4 that everybody's looking for at this particular position. They want them all over 6 foot, if you can get it. They want them to test off the charts. Well, how many of those guys are there? Like, if you look at the safety position now, and you referenced, and you're 100% correct, that you can't play the safety position the way it used to be played. But, like, how many Sean Taylors are there? You mentioned Steve Atwater.
How many Sean Taylors can there be?
Right, unless you move him to linebacker, right? Because now you're putting him in more of a collision-based position, and you're going to be able to get away with more. You're closer to the line of scrimmage. But when you're coming from distance to strike, it's like you have a microscope on you, right? It's just you can't play the position that way.
I had somebody tell me last year, they said, you know why all these slot receivers are eating as much as they have? It's a lot safer to go over the middle now.
Right. Can't touch them. And they know they can't be touched. So,
think about it. You had Ronnie Lott playing center field.
Ronnie Lott, Lester Hayes. I mean, you had these dudes that were just – I mean, their mode of operation was to put you out of the game.
Right. They deterred you from taking that path.
Absolutely. And those days are over.
Those days are long gone. Couple other names to get into. We saw Denzel Burke quite a bit at Ohio State.
Mhm.
Again, product of him being a bona fide draft prospect versus what you have up front,
Yeah.
taking some pressure off.
The one thing I'll say about him is he was a day one starter for them. That's Ohio State. So, like, I don't care who you are as a true freshman.
That's a check.
Yeah, you walk on that campus. That means you're having to beat out 3 or 4 guys to play, and you're a true freshman. I also think that his sample size is very encouraging. He's played a lot of football, chose to come back to school, all right, after the loss to Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, and then ended up winning a national championship. I think there's value in that. So the more of a sample size, the more there is to evaluate and make a determination on when it comes to him.
How much does scheme matter when you're drafting at safety, cornerback, predominantly man, predominantly zone? Does that come into play, or, hey, we just want the best guy and we'll fit him into our scheme because he can play?
I think it's more about man to zone than it is scheme, because you can when I say man to zone, okay, if you're going to play man coverage, all right, that's fairly simple. You know who you're responsible for. Now it comes down to, are you going to play the technique that you were coached? Are you going to be aligned the way you're supposed to be lined? When it gets to starting to be checks and zones and half-field zone, half-field man, what have you, now there's a thought process going on. And you can't get caught up in letting your eyes go here when you're supposed to be keying there. I think there's a whole different level of processing when it comes to that. I do believe, though, that the best safeties, regardless of the talent that they have or that they possess, are they a hitter, are they a tackler, all that, great. Do they communicate to everybody else to make everybody right? Right? And that means, do we avoid a bust or a lapse in decisions or being misaligned? Do we avoid that because we have that one guy back there that makes sure it doesn't happen?
And that was Xavier Woods for the Panthers the last few years. Again, folks wanted more plays, more interceptions from Woods. Mm-hmm. You didn't get that, but when he was out of the lineup, it was clear they missed that communicator.
Right. And when that guy, he kind of you just actually said it best. When he's not there, it becomes glaring. When he's in there and you know he's doing it, you don't quite have the same appreciation for it.
The last thing here, and then we'll bring in Eugene Robinson, who can shed a lot of light on the position, played it at a high level for a long time. When you're building a defense out, you have the island corner, and you can take away essentially half the field.
Deion Sanders.
That allows the rest of the defense to do other things. We've seen it. Teams can be more aggressive. You don't have to worry about leaving a guy on an island because you can now bring more pressure. There's the other part of it, too. You build it from the front seven. And now if you're blowing up plays at the line of scrimmage, maybe you can get away with, hiding a couple of people in the secondary because the play takes a lot less time to develop.
Yeah, instead of it being 3.8 to 4 seconds, now all of a sudden it's 2.7 to 3. And that's a long time in coverage, right? So you start manipulating your back end through the pressure and your ability in the front. And really, if you're just looking at it, if you're standing from the safety position and you're looking right down at the ball, you want to be strong down the middle of the field, right? So your front, your linebacker core, your safety core, that's the middle of the field. And then the guys on the outside, if you're any good up front, that's going to protect them.
Flip the vantage point for me. Go back to your playing days at quarterback. What's that second differential look like for you?
The secondary? What do you mean?
No, that second differential.
Oh, goodness. I mean, well, and a lot of it, too, first of all, let me say this. Sacks are not an offensive line stat. They're a quarterback stat. If you hold on to the ball, you're going to get sacked. All right? I'm sorry, you just are. I think that's one of, in my opinion, Shedeur Sanders' biggest flaws. All right? He's got some bad habits in that regard. But when you get – why is Tua Tagovailoa never sacked?
Gets rid of the ball so quickly.
The ball is out of his hand. Now, how does that happen? Well, it happens because he's prepared, the coach is prepared, they know what's coming, and they have an answer, right? And so when you're sitting back there and you're feeling like it's going to be a jailbreak all the time, that's hard, right? And the picture's changing, and and you think you're seeing this, and you're actually seeing a ghost. And what does that do? You start patting the ball. You start patting the ball, bad things are going to happen. I think, to me, the passing game is so much about rhythm and timing and getting the ball out of your hand that solves as many, if not all, of the problems when it comes to handling pass rush. And you have to be able to have that clock go off in your head, because if you don't, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, and we've heard the Panthers coaches talk about timing, right? Dan Morgan has preached patience, building this thing from the trenches out.
Right.
You get the offensive line in place like they did a year ago. All of a sudden, that helps Bryce. He's got more time to throw.
Right.
That gives the receivers more time to get open. It makes the defense cover for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Like, that's that little element that, hey, this isn't happening. It's about time. And then on the flip side, the Panthers defensively had their struggles. So the opponent had more time for the running back to get to the hole.
Mm-hmm.
They had more time for the quarterback to go through his reads, and throw. And they've talked about, hey, we want to shorten the clock on defense and lengthen it on offense. It seems the easiest way to do that is, again, building from inside out.
Yes, because it begins and ends there. You can plug all the other pieces around that. But if you don't have that, you'll get exactly what we saw from the Panthers defense a year ago. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can talk coaching all you want, but the coach doesn't have any eligibility, and the coach isn't under contract to go on the field. So you got to have players. You got to have better players. And once you have that, then all of a sudden things start coming together, and you can do a little bit more. You have a little more confidence in your team. You get a couple of 3-and-outs. Now all of a sudden the winds start shifting, and sometimes it just takes a couple of those to change the nature of your defense.
Yeah, the silver lining here is if they can do defensively this offseason what they were able to accomplish offensively last year, all of a sudden that should be seen on the field tangibly in more wins. You take a defense that was historically bad for a lot of reasons, injuries amongst them. You get that to average, and you see not anything exponential, but just continued growth offensively from Bryce, from the offensive line, from the skill guys. In the NFC South, you're going to be in the mix.
You are going to be in the mix, and I want to go back to the defense for a second. Everybody talks about, the sack numbers were low. Okay. Well, how low was affecting the quarterback?
Well, it wasn't even that. They couldn't stop the run.
Well, no, yeah, they couldn't stop the run. But when let's just say, and that's the problem, is they were never able to get the opposing offense behind the chains.
Right.
Right? So if you can't win on first down and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 4, right? Well, now you don't have to throw the football on offense if you don't want to. But if you win on that first down, right, and you either stop the run for a gain of 0 or a gain of 1 or even 2, now you change the thought process of the offense of what they're going to do on second down. Panthers never gave people the opportunity to do that.
No, I mean, it was at a point where they were so beat up in the front seven, teams would run the ball. There was a stretch where they were giving up 200 yards per game on the ground, seemingly every week.
Just getting gashed.
All of a sudden, you'd love to use those blitz packages. You'd love to dial up
but
pressure.
They're not in 3rd and 13.
But you can't do it on 2nd and 3.
I know.
I mean, you can, but you're risking it.
Right. I know, and that's tough, man. But again, it takes a little bit of a change. You get a little change in all of that, and it starts having a trickle-down effect.
The Weekend Warriors Draft Special is brought to you by Bud Light. No easier way to enjoy your Sunday. Bud Light is the official beer of the NFL and a proud partner of the Carolina Panthers. He played 16 seasons in the NFL, 11 with the Seahawks. He also played for the Packers and Falcons before finishing up with the Carolina Panthers. Former Super Bowl champion Eugene Robinson joining us. Eugene, we brought you in because I know how much you love talking about DBs.
You know that's right.
This defensive backfield for the Carolina Panthers, we're going to see a rebuilt safety room, but I'm going to start with one piece who I know throughout the course of the season, when we did Panther Talk on Mondays, you raved about Damani Richardson.
Man.
Undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M. Is Damani Richardson someone that you see as a potential starter for 2025?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Because not only he has great feet, but one thing of being a free safety, you have to be around the ball, whether that's in the passing game or whether that's in the running game. You got to be that last guy to stop, and then you got to be an open field tackler, a great open field tackler. And he checks the boxes for me. He was always around the ball. I'm like, dude, this guy keeps showing up. He keeps showing up. He keeps showing up. And I'm like, okay. Then when the open field tackle, and I've been in that space where you got the guy can go two different ways. He cuts off the angle, and he makes a solid tackle. I'm going, dude, I can live with that. And then the only thing that I thought he lacked is that he's not like Wood was, where he's a communicator and talking, but he'll learn that. I had to learn that. I had to learn to be loud and to talk. And
you had to learn that?
Yeah, I had to learn to be loud because typically when you're a rookie, you don't want to say anything. And you're like, and everything is like, you defer to the Ken Easleys, you defer to other people, you don't say anything, but when you find your voice, matching your ability, then you become really like almost braggadocious. You let everybody know. And so I think once he gets a handle of Evero's defense and what he wants, where he wants people at, when you need to make the checks, I think he's going to be outstanding. I know he can catch the ball. I know, but he's a better tackler in the open field, and that's a commodity that you got to have at that position. If you don't have it at the position, your free safety is a liability.
I want you to further elaborate on that because Anish and I were talking about how whether it's at linebacker or in the back end, safety corner, what have you, and you're expected to be a great tackler.
You got to be.
It's a collision sport, and you know whether it's run fits, whether it's angles, this and that. But the game has become so protected that you can't even tackle practicing anymore.
Hey, you know, that's such an interesting point.
So
too.
How are you supposed to be any good at it?
Because you can practice the thud tackling.
Yeah.
You got to get your head out of the surface area now, and you got to get it behind with the road tackles and the hawk tackles that they do now.
Yeah.
But you still can practice where you thud up a dude and you get into the space.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you're about to get in a fight with somebody and you get in their space. You got to be able to get into a guy's space where he knows that he only has one way to go, and then you shoot your shot on him.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, you can practice that, but the hardest thing to do is these running backs are too good.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll make you miss.
They get you in space.
Or
You're
they'll
like,
stiff arm you down in the ground, or Saquon Barkley will jump over you backwards or something like that. So you got to be really good. And one thing I like about Richardson is that he doesn't dive down on the ground to make that tackle below your knees. Guy's going to jump over top of you. He'll stay up top, waist high, to make that diaphragm shot. That's a really good tackle.
Yeah.
We were talking about this too, Eugene, where we'll stick with safeties. You can't play that position like you played it. You can't play that position like it was played in your era. So with all the limitations on how you can hit, where you can hit, slot receivers are eating a lot more this
Yes, they are.
You know, in this day and age for a good reason.
Yes, they are.
How do you play that position out? What do you look for in a prospect?
So I want him to be able to get his head out of the surface on making when you have to make that tackle in the open field or the guy on a slant, that you don't hit him in the jaw or in the head, so that you really kind of concentrate really on his torso where he has to bend. And that's where at the diaphragm, when you start to bend, you're going to make your tackle at that level. You know, even if you shoulder tackle, you're going to make it at that level, but you're going to make sure that you get your shoulder down in that area, because that gets your head really out of the surface area of hitting the guy in the face. And so from that standpoint, you can practice that, and they've been practicing that a lot. I'm talking about the hit where you make a statement where you knock a dude down. You go, yeah, one of those. Not the tackle where you tackle him and you start to play another day. I'm talking about that tackle where you can go ahead and make a nice collision and get your head out of the surface area. And you do that by, it's a diaphragm shot. Right where he bends, that's where you catch him, and then you slide your body up. Because once my body hits you right here in your diaphragm and I slide up to you, the contact's been made there already. And so now I'm not penalized for hitting you as my shoulder comes up underneath your chin. Well, at least you shouldn't be.
Right.
At least you shouldn't be.
So,
because you already made the contact.
You mentioned something in terms of communication. You know, you always hear that phrase, the quarterback of the defense and all those sorts of things. In draft preparation, you can see the height, the weight, the speed. You can watch the tape and this and that. How do you truly unveil who is the guy that is the Pied Piper, gets everybody lined up? Who do you go to say, hey, if I need this guy to do this, and this, and it's all aptitude and communication, all right? How do you investigate that?
So, one, every coach, every college coach is going to know who that guy in the room is. He's going to know that, all right? Now, whether that guy gets interceptions or makes tackles, or maybe he's just not the super-duper star, everybody knows who's that person.
Yeah.
And everybody always relies on that person because here it is. Like Deion Sanders had different people to go and help him because he got to be Deion, but he wasn't making any adjustments.
Yeah.
He's listening to people, man, get over there, Deion. Oh, lock him down, Deion. Or Darrell Reeves is the same way. Lock him down. You got him, Reeves, you got him. But all that stuff that goes on in communication, that's typically your free safety or your middle linebacker, and hopefully it's your free safety because they're the one person that's not accounted for in the blocking scheme at all. They're back about 15 yards, and if they can go ahead, when I see Richardson, and I seen this, and this is to Xavier Woods, to his credit, when I see him doing this and looking back forward, when I see that, I'm like, oh, I already know. He's yelling stuff and he's doing communication. I know that he's getting it.
He's directing traffic.
He's directing traffic, and that's what I want him to be able to do. If I don't see the safety doing, like you never see Troy Polamalu was doing stuff like this, he's getting told. Leroy Butler. Love Leroy Butler. But Leroy Butler's listening to me. Leroy, over there. You listen, over there. Get over there right now. We're going to shift the defense. He's listening to that. So from that standpoint, you always know, and every coach knows who that guy is in the locker room. And so that's where it comes to whoever's drafting this, that. If I'm Dan Morgan, I want to who's this position coach? I want to know how vocal is this guy? Yeah. And then I want to see it on the film because typically you see it on the film by a guy directed.
Yeah, shifting to corners, Lugs and I were talking about, hey, if the Panthers are picking at 8, assuming they don't trade down, a guy like Will Johnson, who could be another shutdown corner opposite J.C. Horn, you're doubling down on a strength. Would that make sense, or is the need in the front seven too great?
The need in the front seven is too much, dude. Look, I know I'm going to get Derek Brown back. DJ Wanham was a beast. Mm-hmm. He came off injury, and I'm like, oh, hold on, wait a minute, man. This dude right here.
Panthers had a pass rush.
Dude, I know, we got a pass rush. Now imagine getting Derek Brown back in the mix. Shai Tuttle Robinson, guys who are serviceable at that position. You just got another guy who can go ahead and rush, a guy who's going to take up 2 people, and now you got DJ Wanham freed up. So I think that the need is too great. I know this Wallace. I know Josie Jewell. I get it, but I'm like, where is that linebacker? Where's my Beeson, my Luke Kuechly, my Dan Moore? Where's that dude at, man? Where's that dude at? Is he the dude for the Georgia, the Walker Cat? Is he the other dude? I can't pronounce the name, Schwerschwinger guy?
Yeah, UCLA.
I mean, that UCLA guy. Where's that guy? And here's the thing about Luke Kuechly. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be yelling at people. But
it's okay. You had a couple of cups of coffee.
And I had some mints here. But here's the thing about Luke Kuechly. What was Luke Kuechly known for? When he came out of BC, man, he was known for being a tackling machine, dude. He led the whole country in tackles, dude. And when I saw him in person at the Ed Block Award or the Ed Courage Award or whatever that he won, all that other stuff, award he won, I'm sitting there going like this. That's Luke Kuechly? Man, that dude's a beast, man. And then when we picked him, I was like, hold up. We just got one of the greatest linebackers that nobody knows about. Nobody knows. They're going, who's this Luke Kuechly guy? Well, we see that Luke Kuechly is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, only because they only have 4 people going in. That's the only reason why I'm just shout out to Luke Kuechly. But that's the only reason. But Luke Kuechly is that guy. Where is that guy on that team? When you look on that defensive front, that defensive 7, you don't see it. And that's where I think we're lacking because whoever is that, if I'm Dan Morgan, I'm looking, where's my linebacker at? He already played the position. He knows. He knows. And here it is. I don't need another cornerback. Jackson is serviceable. He's really good. All right? I don't need another cornerback because I need a pass rush, getting in cats' faces, busting dudes up with my front 7. My front 7 makes that defensive backfield, makes it look great because you can't get the ball off. And that's what I need to go ahead and build that front 7.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier.
We did. And pressure burst the pipe, right?
You know that's right.
Right? And so we can sit here and talk about all this skill on the back end. Well, if they're out there on an island forever, they're going to lose.
They're going to lose.
They're going to lose, right? From your perspective of playing in the defensive secondary, I'm going to take Jahdae Barron, for example, from Texas. He was a safety his first 4 years, moves out the corner, and has an All-American season, but he's not very tall. What do you do with a guy like that?
So I think kind of like Captain Munnerlyn, not a tall guy.
Right.
Got so much moxie and so much good feet, good hands. And then whenever you got a guy who's not tall, this is what you have to realize. Like, he's been told that his entire life.
So he's got a chip on the shoulder.
You ain't that guy. You ain't that guy. You ain't that guy. And he's been proving everybody wrong that he's that guy. And so even when he gets to the NFL and he goes at the nickel, he doesn't care what position he plays because he got a chip on his shoulder saying, you're looking for this guy who's 6'3". You know, Isaiah Simmons. Mm-hmm. When Isaiah Simmons came out, everybody was all over Isaiah Simmons.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Oh, everybody around here wanted Isaiah Simmons instead of Derek Brown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when we look at the struggles of Isaiah Simmons, now you sit there and go, well, hold on, wait a minute. I think we lucked up and we took the right person.
Right.
Yeah. It's really a crapshoot because I can't measure what's inside your heart. Mm-hmm. I don't know what type of dog you got in you. I don't know any of that stuff. You can have good hand skills and snap, but your want-to determines a lot here in the National Football League. That's why J.C. Horn, right? J.C. Horn is a cat, right? I know he's been hurt, but guess what? I know that he wants it, and I know that he doesn't care who he lines up against because he don't think that you can beat him.
Yeah.
That's what he thinks. He firmly believes that you can't beat me. All right, prove it to me. And that's how he feels. So I can't measure that. You can't measure what that looks like. Thomas Davis, Luke Kuechly, Beeson, Dan Morgan, all they want to is at a high level. A high, super-duper level. And when you're playing at that level, I don't care if you're 6'2", I don't care if you're 5'8", I don't care if you're Barry Sanders, I don't care if you the dude, the what's the other running back dude in it was second run-up in the Heisman this year? The dude, man.
Oh, Ashton Genty.
Ashton Genty, yeah, that dude, right?
Yeah.
Dude, all I know is that cat right there, he can't wait to get out there because he's going to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
He's going to prove. Saquon Barkley leaves New York, and everybody thinks he's washed up. Everybody thinks that his better days were behind him and not ahead of him. Dude. And then he totally changed the face of what running backs look like now, and everybody's looking for that Saquon Barkley. Everybody's looking. I can't measure what's in your heart at all, and I don't care what size you are. I don't care. If you can play and you can ball, of course, if you 5'2" with an offensive lineman.
I think you can't measure. I think you can measure cholesterol, but I get what you're putting down.
You know what I'm saying. But you know what I'm saying. But we can't measure. We can't measure that. Now, I'm not going to put him on an island against Calvin Johnson, who's 6'6". If I do put him on an island, I'm going to rotate the safety over the top of him.
Sure.
That's what I'm going to do. But that's what you do for somebody like that. Or you say, hey, man to man, you got him.
Yeah.
You match it. You got him.
Cat coverage.
Yeah, that's right.
You got that cat.
You got that cat. You got that cat.
Yeah.
That's how I do it.
In this division, though, when you look at the Bucs, for example, they re-signed Godwin. Mike Evans is still going strong. The Falcons with Drake London. The Saints still have Chris Olave.
And don't forget, I don't know what Eugene Robinson. He's just a beast anyway. He's just that guy.
No, I know. Another nightmare. Another nightmare.
Yeah.
How much during the draft and addressing your needs are you kind of looking at your immediate competition, the teams that you play twice every year, and saying, we got to get somebody to match up with them? I mean, I go back to when the Falcons had Mike Vick. That's why the Panthers went and got Thomas Davis.
Exactly. And don't forget, Thomas Davis was a safety when he first got here, and then he got moved to linebacker. And he was one. And I told Thomas Davis at that time, I said, dude, I haven't seen people hit like that since Roddy Lott. I said, you just that dude. I said, they don't have to move you. They moved him to linebacker. He's been hitting people ever since.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, you're absolutely right. But I think you're right. When we look at, I think Tampa is like maybe the standard that you look at. Of course, Olave he's a beast. But, man, Baker Mayfield made them special and made them even more relevant. Right? And then because he has the receivers have Evans and crew, man, you gotta account for them now. I thought that what we lacked, I thought we lacked a pass rush. And I thought the pass rush, because we lacked the pass rush, now you letting Baker Mayfield eat.
Yeah.
That first game, man, Baker Mayfield was eating. I mean, he was getting down. And so from that standpoint, I'm sitting going, dude, you got to be able to put pressure on the quarterback and get in this dude's face to make him throw when he doesn't want to throw the ball or make him relegated to something that's very, very short. And that's why I think in this draft, it has to be the front seven. It got to be. If your defensive front seven ain't hitting, I don't care who you have back there. J.C. Horn can't cover all day. He can't. He won't be able to. And he's going to get mad at you because he was like, hey, man, defensive back.
Help me out.
Hey, man, hey, that was 4 or 5 seconds, man. It can't be that. And so the ball needs to be coming out in 2.8 seconds, right around that, because you got a pass rush in guys' face. And so that's what I'm hoping for. And when we look at our division, I'm like, dude, Tampa was, I thought, the standard. It was, and also Atlanta, they both balled out. But I thought that towards the end of the season, I thought we were on par with both those teams.
So to accomplish what you're talking about, you have the 8th pick. Don't pick again until 57. Do you trade down and try and get multiple picks to get multiple bodies in that defensive front?
Wow, that's a really good calculated risk. I don't think they have the capital. I mean, not the financial capital to do it. I don't think that when they look across their team, is that something they want to go ahead and do. I think when you look at Derek Brown getting back in the mix, that's huge. Mm-hmm. That changes the entire complexion of that defense. And now I can be at number 8 and see who falls. Yeah. I think one of the linebackers we're talking about, any linebacker, I think they're going to fall there. I'm hoping that they get a linebacker. I'm not looking for a secondary person. Yeah. I don't think we need a secondary person.
You mentioned Schlesinger from UCLA. You know who else liked him?
Who's that?
Luke.
See?
Yeah.
See? That's what I'm talking. And I believe he has 136 tackles. I think he's like 136 tackles, 2 interceptions, had 11.5 tackles for loss, somewhere around there. That tells me, and only like 12 games. 12 games, dude.
I know.
That's crazy. That's insane.
I think it's very telling that we brought Eugene on to talk defensive backs, and he's kind of made the case, hey, the priority needs to be the 7 guys in front.
Yeah, and you build a championship team from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Regardless of sport.
Absolutely.
The problem is they're not standing on every street corner. I can go. You and I right now could throw a rock outside and hit a wide receiver in the head. But because they're everywhere.
Because they're everywhere. Right now they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, but not those guys.
Yeah.
Eugene Robinson shedding some light on this Panther defense. It's going to be an exciting couple of months.
Man, I'm looking for that, man. I need a dog up front, man. I want one of them dogs to bark, dude. That's what I need. I'm sorry, dude. I don't mean to be all that. I am. I'm so loud, dude.